Hi guys, welcome to the Peppermint Apes podcast. This is episode 2. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new and leave us a comment with any topics you'd like us to cover in future videos. Guys, episode 2 our podcast.
Here we are.
Obviously we're missing one person today. In the last vlog that I put out of February, just sort of sharing our adventures, I did announce to the world that Lewis is going to be a dad.
An awesome one he will be.
Indeed.
Yep.
I'm going to be an uncle. Try and be.
Congratulations.
Oh, well done.
But he's got his parents over tonight because they've got like a really good scan tomorrow. I think it's the gender reveal.
Oh, what do you reckon?
It's a boy or a girl.
Yeah, 50-50.
Yeah. But no, that's where Lewis is tonight. But no, for this episode, we were originally going to talk about just the local music scene, but there's another topic that we need to cover tonight. But I'll pass it over to you, Sam, to host this one.
Okay, cheers, Rye. So yeah, as the band Hypochondriac, Chris came up with the idea of talking about the local music scene. But then, of course, what's going on in the world right this very moment is the coronavirus, and we can't get away from it, unfortunately. It's every newspaper, every news article, on the TV, Facebook, social media, everywhere. It's everywhere at the moment, isn't it? So you can't actually get away from it.
What's the coronavirus?
What's the coronavirus?
I don't think I've heard anything about it, have you?
It's a hangover.
It's a hangover, is it?
To be honest with you, lads,
No.
it's everywhere now. I've actually logged out of social media because it's just too much for me now. Just hearing about it every single day, wash your hands, the death toll and things like that. It's morbid, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Taking over our lives, isn't it?
Absolutely, that's the thing. And I mean, what's your view on it, guys? Basically, what have you heard about it so far? Has it put you in fear, or are you just thinking keep calm and carry on?
I think I think when it first was announced, like you keep a track of the news, don't you? And you think, okay, well, we've heard of swine flu before, Ebola, and of course it was terrible. People were losing their lives, and but you don't really feel like it's going to affect anyone close by. You kind of not bury your head under the sand, but you just get on with your life, don't you?
Yeah.
Don't really think about it. And then, a couple of weeks ago, my parents were stacking up on tin food and things like that. And I thought they were crazy.
No, that's the big thing now,
that was kind of my thing. However, I must say, obviously, been watching the news last few days. Yeah, it's become more serious. But today, I finished work, and I just went for a shop, not because I was personally going to bulk buy, just because I had to just get some more food and bits and pieces. And I went into Tesco, and it was absolutely rammed of people. It was bizarre. It was like a film, really. It was like a zombie film in a way. Everyone was trying to get
Dawn of the Dead.
There was hardly any food on the shelves, which you don't get in a massive superstore, do you? And no toilet roll whatsoever. It was scary, and I think if anybody, regardless if you think this is serious or not, and obviously we'll talk about is it media hype or should we really be concerned, park that. I think people should still go and bulk buy, because ultimately it's going to be hard to get your goodies and your shop stuff for the next month or so. I reckon there's going to be a shortage of supplies, that kind of thing.
I just didn't think people cared so much about toilet paper.
Well, but my wife went into Tesco's and there was nothing there. She said, "Where's all your toilet rolls?" I went, "Oh, we restocked it this morning," and they were gone in 45 minutes. People were waiting outside the door to go in and
using kitchen roll next. It's just, it's not
abrasive. It's like sandpaper.
It blocks the toilet, doesn't it? You can only get away with 2 sheets, really.
One sheet.
When people buy their new bathrooms, everyone's going to say, "I need a bidet." Yeah, that's going to be exactly it.
I said that to Steph the other day. I said, "I bet you all the
bidet sales got up.
People who've got bidets are laughing." Absolutely.
So bidet listeners, well done.
But for people, obviously, who I'm sure anyone who listens to this podcast or watches this podcast, they're going to know what coronavirus is. But just a brief outline of it, I've got up on my screen here what it is. So COVID-19 is caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome, or in other words, SARS-CoV-2, originating in Wuhan. Now,
you can see why they just call it coronavirus.
Oh, it's a mouthful, isn't it? But the problem is the source of it. How did it come about? Obviously, there's conspiracies out there, and there's scientific reasons. Everyone's saying it was people eating bats.
Yeah.
That was the first one, wasn't it? And then there was videos going around of people eating bats. But I think we know now it's not the case, isn't it? I think it originated in food market where there's wild animals being sold, and the way they were living was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah,
and the conditions they were in was disgusting. So, but obviously there's conspiracies, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, some of the conspiracies as well, and I'm in no position to really, talk facts with coronavirus because I've not researched it fully, but I've heard, that there was a sort of research lab, where it could have technically been man-made in a way. I'm not saying it was manipulated or it was deliberate. We don't know, but they're talking about there was an accident. It spread that way. And there's even talks as well that they could, we need to be a little bit worried as well because they say, there's worse things out there like the common flu and stuff like that. But they're saying there could be traces of things like HIV and stuff like that in coronavirus, which in 18 months' time could kill your immune system, which could make some people die just by the common flu. So that's where, is it media hype or is it something that we should be really serious about? I don't know.
I did see something quite humorous the other day. I think it was like the two main outcomes. It was actually a study, and it was like, well, either you can turn into pneumonia or you just get the common cold. So it's like, how can you go from
a cold
like a severe,
can't breathe,
can't breathe, lungs filled up with fluid, to it's just a few days off work,
just got sniffles, Obviously, you hear all the conspiracies as it's population control because there's billion people in China, isn't there? And and so it's been released as population control. There's who knows what the fact is, but what we've been told is obviously it's originated from a food market over in China. Funnily enough, I watched a video on YouTube the other day, and it's a chap who lives in Wuhan, and he's a teacher, an English teacher out there. He contracted the virus in 2019 in November, and that's the thing, we didn't hear about it until January 2020, like the 1st of January, I think it was news over here. And if you think between November and January, millions of people have travelled worldwide, haven't they?
Yeah.
If more people contracted it. So it's probably already been here for a few months and people probably already had it but not thought about it. It's only because it's in the news. People have now got, cold symptoms. I think, oh my God, got to get to the doctors and get checked, haven't they? So
yeah, exactly. And partly it's already here.
Yeah.
It's spread. The virus was here from, like you say, a couple of months ago. I do think it's a balance, isn't it? I think there are some people that probably have a slight cough, which you would have this time of the year anyway. And they over panic. But having said that, it's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
If you are concerned, or if you're particularly vulnerable, some people, have been checked out because they've already got diabetes or they're an older generation. You can't. It's best to just check.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the time, it could be a little bit of media hype.
Yeah, absolutely.
Media love it.
But what makes this virus so effective is the symptoms of it. I mean, just reading here, symptoms are most often fever, dry cough, shortness of breath, and then complications of pneumonia, acute respiratory distress syndrome. From everything that I've seen, it starts out as a cold. Now, you will go to work. I think 90% of people will go to work with a cold, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Who would have a day off with a runny nose, I've gone to work with a cold, because I'd rather be at work than laying in the city feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah.
So I'd go to work, and that's probably what most of the population's done. This is how this virus is spread. It's someone's sneezed, and it's got into the the environment, and then someone's contracted it. So it's such an easy thing.
There was years ago, wasn't it? I think 1918 or something, after the First World War. There's something called Spanish flu.
Yeah.
Which the reason it happened was that all the soldiers come back from the First World War. They'd all had the flu out in the war, but they've all become immune to it. So they come back to England or back to their home countries, wherever they were from, and then everyone from home their immunities weren't prepared to deal with it. And I think it wiped out I think it was 4 or 5 million in the end. Wow. And the reason it was called Spanish flu is because it killed the Spanish king, but at the time. But I think that was the last massive pandemic global thing. And then I sort of saw something in the news that was saying that coronavirus could be the next Spanish flu, but which hopefully it isn't.
Because what's funny is I don't remember swine flu getting this much hype in the media, on the news. But then I look online and on my screen now, coronavirus, you can see where it's hit worldwide. So there's some countries that like very dark red, some are just red, some are not even been touched at all. Now, if you look at the swine flu map, most of the countries are dark red. So I don't think the coronavirus has had the same effect as swine flu in terms of the affected number.
Yeah, in terms of volume, no. And I think even with Ebola and etc.
Ebola killed, I think, 10,000 in one country. China's not reached that yet, I don't think. So worldwide's not even reached that. So I don't think it's...
The difference is with coronavirus, it has spread across the country,
across
the world. You know.
It does sort of open up another thing as well, which is a bit controversial, I will admit. But I've got a few friends on Facebook that are avid vegans. And they're sort of stating that, well, you know, if the world didn't eat meat, then maybe this wouldn't have happened, you know, which I was just sort of like, is that a point? Because, you know, things you say like swine flu, that came from pigs.
Yeah.
This supposedly has come from the consumption of eating animals, even though, you know, it might not be the bats thing, but like you were saying about the markets and everything like that, where they're trading livestock and animals, it's come from that. If that industry didn't exist, would this illness happen? Probably not. But then something else might have manifested from eating other things.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
So, and I'm a vegetarian. I'm not vegan, and I'm not here to be I'm not a protester in any shape or form. But I do think, not just coronavirus, but I do think there are a lot of diseases that can be prevented if you don't eat certain, not all meats, but I think like red meat in particular.
Or pork.
Yeah.
On my screen, I'm on the website called Worldometer.info, and it's live information from around the world. So it's everything from how many people are on the planet, so the population goes up, how many deaths, how many births, even information like how many bicycles were sold in one day.
Wow.
Things like that. It's got everything. I don't know how it gets the information, but it seems quite accurate. Now, on my screen, I've obviously got the COVID-19 coronavirus outbreak information, and it's last updated at 1948. Obviously, we're now 9 o'clock, so if I just refresh my page on my laptop. So the cases worldwide are 155,860, with 5,815 deaths, but then the majority have recovered, 74,438, which I think it just shows that is this virus just being blown out of proportion?
If you go by stats, yes. But if we go by where we are at the moment, in terms of it is the unknown, we don't know really what coronavirus contains.
Germany have had no deaths.
Probably not.
Look at that.
Yeah, so on this table here, China's at the top, followed by Italy. Spain's obviously coming up the ranks as well, isn't it, with its cases, and the UK's in there as well. Now, the UK's had 10 deaths, I think it was today, bringing the total cases, including the new cases, up to 1,140 in the UK. Now, China is obviously showing 80,000 cases, but 13 new deaths. That's the lowest it's been in the whole time of this pandemic.
Right.
So something is hopefully working out there, but their measures they're taking are hopefully working for them. As we know, Italy's on complete lockdown, aren't they, as well? Do you think we'll end up going on lockdown?
Well, do you know, I was just going to ask that, funnily enough. I don't know if they'll turn around and say the whole of UK. I mean, it could happen. It could happen by the time we upload this podcast. You never know. It's so unpredictable, this virus, really. I reckon what they might do is they might turn around and say people over 70 have to be in lockdown. People with certain conditions have to go into lockdown. Certain schools might go down to lockdown. So I reckon there'll be partitions, if you like, that will shut down. Whether it be the whole, of the UK, I don't know. But you just don't know, do you? You could never predict Italy or
it's
other
just
things.
in the unknown, isn't it?
They're saying Italy 2 weeks ago is in a similar situation to we are right now.
Okay, yeah.
So
anything could happen.
Anything could happen in the next 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
But like I said, going shopping today, and so in the grand scheme of things, it's not really a big deal, but it really did open my eyes today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to see the shortage of food and people panicking, really.
Yeah. I mean, supermarkets, they're talking about the economy is going to go down the toilet, basically, because, the people aren't going to be going to work. There's going to be no trading going on, things like that. But tell you what, supermarkets are making a killing. If you put all that aside, what's going on? They're making so much profit, so much money now as well. So they're probably growing up the stock market,
100%.
and then you got companies that are going to be shutting down, like smaller firms as well. So Flybe went under, didn't they? I know obviously they probably had other things as well, but I think coronavirus finished them off. I think as well. And then BA, I heard, is struggling. £250 flights to New York.
And we don't know. I mean, by the time the podcast goes up, I mean, they might have already announced it. again, factually, I don't know all the points, but I did read somewhere that the USA might be stopping flights from the UK to America. So
this was the thing. A colleague of mine said the other day that they've stopped all flights from Europe to the USA, but still England to the USA. Now, what's to stop someone from getting a connecting flight via England?
Exactly.
Unless they put in some sort of measure control. So, no, you've travelled from Europe, so sorry, you can't.
Doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah, it's great. So I don't think Mr. Trump's faulty all the way through, to be honest with you.
Like most things. That's another podcast.
But, of course, we're a band.
Yeah.
We play music, and our whole podcast is about music. So, of course, we go to gigs, we play gigs. It's gonna be affecting all the things we do. So we had tickets to go see Sam Fender this month, which I think you said earlier on, Chris, that you think will get cancelled.
Yeah, I mean, you've said, haven't you, to Bill, our mate, was the guy who got the tickets, and you said to him that you're not going, haven't you?
Yeah, I said to him I'm not going. Just fears that you're in a space with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And people
it's all standing as well, isn't it?
And people will probably still go as well who are feeling under the weather. So I'd rather not take the risk. When coming home, I've got a young boy, little boy. He's 17 months old. I don't want to pass anything on to him.
There's no point taking the gamble.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd rather not. But then I've got a list in front of me of what's happening worldwide as well. So you see the Jonas Brothers have cancelled. Chris's favourite, Baby Shark, and Rage Against the Machine. Loads of Khalid, BTS, Stormzy, Green Day. They're cancelling all their shows.
Yeah.
Louis Tomlinson. But it's not even just music; it's exhibitions as well. Yeah. I go to a lot of IT, exhibitions, things like that, and CCTV security things, and they've all been cancelled just for fears of it.
Yeah, no, it's everything as well, and football, which we mentioned Bill, who's a friend of ours. We both actually run another YouTube channel called Garage Football. So we film in the shed. I'm joking. But no,
what's it about?
It's about politics. No,
yeah.
But what I was going to say is we talk about all things football. And next week, Bill's going to be uploading a video about coronavirus and how it affects the football games and what's going to happen with the Premier League. Are they going to stop it? Well, they've postponed it.
Because Arsenal and Chelsea are in lockdown, aren't they? Because Tammy Abraham's caught it.
Yeah,
and
Mikel Arteta's got it. So and you think it's a big thing, isn't it? Stadium games, and what will they do with the season going forward? So that will be quite an interesting podcast. So check out Garage Football, subscribe to that, and watch those videos. But yeah, it's all things that are affected, and even like you say, music. There was a really big country festival that got cancelled at the O2 the other day. So it's affecting everything.
It is. And it, just more so than anything that I've ever seen in my life. I've never known something like this to stop. These big events going ahead, really. But then we need to also look at. We want to get together and talk about local music. So obviously we play locally. We play in lots of pubs, venues. We're obviously playing to the public, aren't we? Yeah. So again, it could be a member of the public. I've got a bit of a cold, but I'll still go out tonight.
Yeah.
Things like so. How do you think we can deal with that?
Well, first of all, I think coronavirus aside, I think we can all say that the local music scene, wherever you got two sides, haven't you? You've got the original bands where they go out and play band nights, and then you've got the cover band community. And I think the last few years, anyway, that we've been gigging, or when we was in Strikeout as well, it's always been hit and miss gigs. They're not always guaranteed unless you play certain venues and you've promoted it really well. Gigs are very 50-50, and if Christmas is coming up, it could be really good, or it could be quiet, and it could be dead. Or like you say, the other day we did a gig at Burnham, and we had, was it Storm Dennis they called it?
Yeah.
Funny enough, we still had a good turnout that night.
But it was bizarre, wasn't it? Because it was completely empty.
And it just filled up.
I was about 15, but 15 minutes before we played, everyone just pulled in.
Yeah, and so there's always, I think the music scene, personally, I wouldn't say has died, but I think because you've got things now like Netflix and more people have got more incentives to stay in, than go out. Unless there's a really good occasion, more people would rather check out music on YouTube and then maybe go to a gig. So I think for bands that have just started, it must be so tough. And now with coronavirus, it's going to be even harder. And obviously we've got quite a few gigs this year.
Yeah, we do.
Lined up. And, every single month we're going to be uploading a vlog, showing what gigs we've done and our activity, like this podcast, etc. So, if anyone's watching this for the first time, please subscribe to check out our content. We haven't got a gig now for a few weeks.
So the 24th of April?
I think it's the 11th of April.
11th of April
is the next one.
Yeah, it's
the Swan, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so far, all gigs are going to continue.
Yeah.
But we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if they have to be postponed or what will happen. But what's your prediction, Chris, in terms of coronavirus and how it's going to affect the music industry?
I have started to notice that a few bands on the Essex cover bands community have sort of said that we've cancelled gigs and stuff just because of coronavirus, and pubs have been advised not to put events on and things like that. So it's obviously going to take a big effect on sort of those people. But I think, we don't depend on this as an income. So it's a little booster, and the main reason I do it as well is because I get a lot out of it, like enjoyment as well. So I don't think it's having a huge impact on maybe private gigs, because like weddings and things like that, because people will still get married, won't they? And people will still going to have a party.
Yeah.
So,
and I think when it comes to a private event as well, if it's a bride and groom, for instance, they'll know, all the guests.
Exactly. You don't know where they've been.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. But then them guests will probably cancel, whereas when it's an open event, people might still turn up.
But even with private events, though, it does depend on, again, the volume.
Yeah.
If it's a small wedding, I don't think it really matters. But if someone's planned a massive, church wedding with, loads of guests, depending on how, coronavirus goes, they might cancel. You don't know. No one really knows what's around the corner.
I don't think the reasons that pubs would be cancelling gigs is because they're worried about the amount of people that's going to be in their pub. I think it's the lack of people that are going to be going out and the amount of revenue they're going to make of an evening.
Yeah, because when they open up the pub, obviously they're opening for business, aren't they? Yeah. If they're not pulling pints, they're not making money, are they?
Exactly.
So
they're not got going money to pay the band.
Exactly. So, and then that's one problem. But then it's also paying for their bills, paying for their arrears that they have to pay for. They're going to think, well, it's not worth us opening. So why would I want to pay a band?
It must put a massive strain on sort of pubs as well and venues, because like you said, you're not putting pints, you're not making money. But then on the other side of it, they've still got to pay for things, especially if some pubs are leased and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've still got that monthly thing to pay out, and if you've not got no income coming in, it's going to put a big strain.
Exactly. And this is what bands need to realise as well, because it's so easy. And again, on another podcast, we'll talk about how much should bands charge, etc. But for all different occasions. But sometimes I think some bands don't always understand that, in business, doesn't matter if it's a pub, doesn't matter if it's a state agency, doesn't matter if it's, engineering, there's always going to be profit and loss, and you have to look at, what's your outgoings and how much staff you've got. And there are some pubs that I think take the piss. They make a killing and they can pay bands more, and we'll discuss that more in detail. But at the same time, no one opens up the pub to make a loss, so it's a balance.
So as a band, obviously we've been playing. We've got 2 gigs a month this year,
on average.
On average, yeah. So we have to also keep ourselves. We need to make sure we don't spread anything to the members of the public. So we have to obviously take precautions as well. Make sure if we're feeling unwell, maybe we'll have to get a dep in.
Which I didn't do last week. I'm just coming out of a flu cold and I went to a gig.
Exactly. So, half of Colchester's probably got coronavirus. Because of you. But, no, in all seriousness, I mean, if we have got something, we'd have to either try and find a dep, or worst case, have to cancel, because we have to think about public health here. We can't be exempt just because we're playing a gig.
That's it. Health comes first. And, touch wood, no one's got coronavirus in this band. And like you say, if someone did, we'd have to work out, number one, if we would do the gig. The good thing about the Peppermint Apes, like we've always said, is, we are the main band, but it's not just us, is it? We've got other people that are part of the Apes, and we've got Deps, and, there's going to be a few gigs where, obviously when Lewis has his baby, where we'll need to get a dep in. So we'd cross that bridge. The Peppermint Apes would continue, but it just depends on how serious this coronavirus outbreak is, because some of the pubs might get cancelled as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But coronavirus aside, obviously we'll talk more about it, but part of this podcast as well is about the gig scene.
Yeah.
There will be people that are watching this that aren't from Essex. They're all over the UK or over the country. So I reckon it's quite relevant to any location in theory. But Chris, obviously, you've done quite a lot of gigs on the local scene.
Yeah.
I was in the band Strikeout with you before the Apes, before you joined the Apes, I should say. And you was in other cover bands before that.
Yeah.
What's been, coronavirus aside for a minute, what's been your thoughts on the actual music scene, like the highs and lows? How do you think it's going?
Do you sort of mean in terms of sort of cover bands?
So
I've never sort of
from
been
your
more involved in the
perspective,
originals.
Yeah. Go from the cover band side of things.
For cover bands, I think it's a bit weird because there are so many cover bands coming out of Essex, and some of the quality of them. I mean, you got people that want different things out of it. Some people are, no disrespect to anyone, are just people that have been playing their instruments for a couple of years, get together once a Sunday afternoon before their roast dinner, and they'll have a jam, and they think, let's do a gig down the local boozer. But then you've got some bands that have been going a long time, like you've got the Expose, you've got Hedgehog, others, I think Solar 9 have been going around a while now. And those guys, they're really, really good. They are really good bands. And they will always get a gig. I don't know how many gigs Expose they have in a year, but I think it's probably more than about 40, I'd say.
Yeah, they gig most Friday, Saturday nights.
Most Friday, Saturdays, isn't they?
I looked on that band photos website you put our gigs up on, and the list was as long as your arm. Yeah.
And we've seen them a few times. They're a great band. You can't deny it. But I think the reason that they're so popular is because they've been going for so long, as well as the fact that they're all very good. So
it was late 70s they formed, wasn't it?
I think so. Or was it maybe mid 80s or something?
Yeah.
I
think it was mid 80s. Yeah. I mean, I don't know for definite.
They even appeared on DIY SOS once as well. So
I saw that.
Nice.
So they're a really good band. But I think it's very difficult for a new cover band to sort of make an indent in pubs, because I mean, as you guys have realised now, pub managers do not give a about if you're the next Who or Beatles or you're just an average Joe. They couldn't care if you're there and there's punters in the pub and they seem to be enjoying it.
It goes back to, I think, if they're pulling pints and making money, mate, that's all they care about.
There's just I mean, you know what? I will mention this pub because it's personally affected me now. I've been trying. I mean, I go in there with my mates every Saturday night for probably. I mean, not now. Things are different now, but a couple of years ago, I used to go in there quite a lot because it was the pub you went to before you went to the Brush. But we're trying to get a gig in there and the guy knows me in there, and I don't know if I've always timed it at the wrong time to ask for a gig, gone in there at the wrong time. But it's always been a bit sort of like, I know you, I'm not going to give you a gig just out of principle. Yeah. And I've seen some terrible bands in there. I mean, I've seen some rubbish. I'm not going to judge them or anything like that. I understand that some people don't want to push and make and be really tight and everything like that. They just want to enjoy it, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But it frustrates me when you've got venues like that could have a really good band play, but they won't out of some sort of principle. And it just goes down to the fact that I think pub managers don't, like I said, they don't care. As long as they've got every Saturday filled in with something going on, then they know they've got people going to see that band, or they know they're going to have something going on, like I said, and they don't care. So
just before this lineup of the Apes was formed, we was in Strikeout, and we were we were trying to book gigs for Strikeout, but also for the Apes. Quite a few times they said, "Okay, come back in October, whatever year it was. Come back in October, we'll book some gigs." Last year, I think it was.
Yeah.
I think you got to October. Sorry, we're fully booked.
Well, I went in August, actually, end of August, and I thought to myself, right, I'm going to hit him early. I'll go in end of August, and he said, "Oh, we fully booked a couple of months ago." And I said, "Well, 3 months ago. You said come back in August, like September." He went, "Sorry, fully booked."
But that's an example of
not all like that.
What some pubs can be like, and. No, I'm sure. Don't get me wrong; they could be great guys, and it's a great pub. That's why you're saying all this. It's not because you dislike them; it's because you love the pub, and you know that we're a good band.
I'm from Rayleigh, so I live in Rayleigh. I've grew up in Rayleigh. I've got so many people in Rayleigh that want to come and see the band, and they're like, "Oh, when you're playing?" And like, when we played in Benfleet, that's around the corner, and that's why there were so many people.
Yeah,
there.
It was absolutely rammed.
They were saying it was one of the busiest gigs they've had in a while.
Yeah. A lot of my family were there as well. A lot of, Lucy, my fiance, her mum and other half were there as well, which is great. And so many people came that have never seen me play before.
Yeah.
And because I'm a member of Benfleet Running Club as well, that loads of people came from there, and it was just a great evening.
But then sometimes there comes a point where you just accept that some venues, you just accept, okay, it is what it is. And I think the point of this podcast really is for other bands that are trying to book gigs, you're going to get this. Even with bands, and I'm not saying that we've made it in any shape or form, but even bands like us that have been going for, well, as the Peppermint Apes, over 10 years, 11 years, you're still going to get some venues, that don't want to book you, and you're going to get some venues that, want to get you loads of dates and book you, and everything. So, but going back to the point, really, is I don't think the music industry, the music scene has died. I think it's not as strong as it probably was. Everyone says, back in the 80s, it was amazing because, again, like I said, people didn't have Netflix, people didn't have Sky Plus.
Do you know the way forward? Then we have to start streaming our gigs on YouTube.
Yeah,
you know,
that's the next step. I'd love us to do that for YouTube.
You'd probably get more interest if you did a Facebook Live gig from a rehearsal room than an actual gig.
Yeah. The thing is, though, when I first started playing in bands, obviously Chinnery's was the venue to play back in the day.
This is on the original front now, not covers as such.
Yeah, but it will merge on the covers. Now, when I've played in the original bands, I've never had a turnout at a gig as much as we have in a covers band. So in a covers band, we've had a crowd at every gig. I've played Chinnery's with 5 people, and one of them was my dad, whereas I played covers gigs, and because people know the songs, they're interested. Unless you're well-established originals band, people know the words to your songs, then, you're gonna struggle. And I've never been able to pull off an originals gig with a massive crowd. Originals covers is always the one that's
I do think the way to do it with originals, and I think a lot of original bands, myself as well, I sort of dabbled in originals, and you want to play your own music. That's all you want to play because you're so proud of it, and you think, I'm playing a gig, I'm playing my own stuff. But actually, for the people there, they don't want all the time. They want to listen to your own stuff. They want familiarity, and so I think a lot of the time originals bands make a mistake of playing all originals.
Only exclusively originals.
Well, we live in a world now where most people have got a short attention span.
Yeah.
Would you say? No. do you know what I mean? But most people do have a short attention span.
I didn't know you had a short attention span.
Hey? But the point is, even me, when I go to see, I love original material. I love supporting live music. And I would go and see, they could be the tightest band in the world, but if I don't know their songs, I'm only going to really want to listen to a couple of their songs. And that sounds really harsh, but it's just because after a while you start thinking I need a beer, but then when you start playing good covers, now, if anyone wants to know the full history of the Peppermint Apes, we've got our first episode, which is a history of the band from when it started to where we are now. And it's over, was it 2 hours long?
2 hours, 10 minutes.
That talks about the story of the band, so that goes in more detail. But to sort of give you a bit of a breakdown, the Apes, when we started, we were pretty much an all originals band. When I formed it in 2008, all we did was originals. I think we did one cover, which was a T-Rex song called Dreamy Lady, which wasn't even a T-Rex single. That was just a song that we made our own.
Did you do a cover of Molly's Chambers as well?
We did, when we did some pub gigs down the line. But the point is, we were pretty much originals. And our first gig at the Touchline was really busy because we gave it a promotion. And to be fair, your first gig is usually, I think with any band, when you get on the gigging scene, your first gig is usually quite packed. Yeah. And it was for us. And then we did other gigs that was good. And before we did America, we did the London scene. And, and I think even when you joined the band, Sam, down the line, when we were doing more originals, we'd play gigs in London, and it was very hit and miss. Sometimes you'd play a gig where it would be really packed, and other times it would be dead. You would play to the bar staff. But this is the other thing for original bands as well, what we learned over the years is if you're playing a band night, showcasing your originals, when's the best slot? When's the best time to play?
I'm glad you brought this up, actually, because I always found headlining was the worst.
It was the graveyard shift,
because you get on it. When I used to get headline, you think, oh my god, I've made it. You go on at 20 to 11, 20 minutes set, no one's there. No, there's no one there. Your best is, I found it was either the very start because people were still there, or like Chris just said, the middle slot. Never get a headline slot. Never fall for that title of headline.
So young musicians, if you've just formed, I always say to them, don't, because it's so easy for, like, for example, if we set up a gig at Chinnery's and we played in the middle and we got a young band who are, quite energetic. They bring their family along. We're going to get that crowd. And then our crowd as well are going to be gone by the time. It's just how it goes, and it's sad.
People are there to support their friends, if you like.
Well, yeah, the problem is I used to find as well with Chinnery's, a lot of people would come down. It's the trains as well when they run. You've got the C2C line from Southend Central, which goes a little bit later than the other the Victoria.
Line, yeah.
But the last train out of Southend Victoria, I think, is like 5 to 11.
Okay, yeah.
It's like if you've got the last shift at Chinnery's, your fan base that have got on that train, they're going to be gone at 10:30.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like...
Yeah. I always found just a headline slot a waste of time. And I'm not bothered if that puts off venues for booking us, because it's just something I don't want to ever go back to, is headlining.
No. Unless it's a good festival or something.
Festival,
like
absolutely,
that.
when there's a guaranteed crowd.
Yeah. But, I think the good thing with us going forward as a band is, don't get me wrong, before this lineup and before the Apes took a little break, we've always, we've had an album that we're going to re-release at some point, because it's not on Amazon yet at the moment, Against the Wall. At some point we're going to re-release it. But what we found towards the end, and we're going to start bringing some of the originals back as well, and write new originals down the line.
Yeah.
It always works. What's quite fresh about us is we're capable of putting together a really fun pub set, like you say, to keep people entertained. And let's be honest, that's what they pretty much want to hear anyway. And then you can chuck in 2 or 3 of your best originals, and they really appreciate it. And then after the gig, what we find is at half time or at the end of the gig, they go, "I want to hear more of your originals. Where can I hear more?" And then they buy CDs. Or want to stream it or hear more, and then
it's just peppering. You're just peppering it in there,
and then
aren't you?
Exactly. And if we do have an originals gig down the line, they're more inclined to come. So I think for bands really who want to push their originals, unless you're really really young, and you're at school, you've got no sort of full-time job, then push your originals. But I think really it makes sense to have a good cover set and then slowly bring your originals in and take it from there.
I think you get people interested as well. If you go back 25 years ago, obviously, well, that's when I was born, but so I can't. But I think from speaking to, my dad and other sort of people similar to his age, it's like there weren't as many cover bands or bands in pubs around as they are now. He said it was very rare, but when you found one, he said they were usually good. And you would follow them, and you'd find out where they're playing, and you'd go to their next gig. Nowadays, people don't do that. They'll see a band in a pub, and they'll think, "Yeah, they were good. I can have a card, mate. How much you charge and stuff like that. Or I'll definitely follow you. I'll definitely come to your next gig." Never hear from him ever again.
No.
And I think that's just a product of the era we're around. Everything, like you said, Ryan, it's a attention span thing. I think if people are scrolling through social media, if people are looking on Instagram, maybe social media, yeah. So it's they're going to see it come up. Oh, Peppermint Apes. This, that, and the other. If you have like a YouTube video attached or something like that, they'll look at it and they'll watch a bit of it then, and if they like what they hear, then they'll maybe come to a gig.
Exactly. I think we are in the world now of social media. It's all about...
You have to utilise it.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are people that just do little clips on... It's not just YouTube, but Facebook video is powerful now. And there are... there's one person, called Teddy Swims. I don't know if you've heard of him.
No.
But he just... he probably does his own stuff. I could be completely wrong. He could be, releasing an album, all that kind of stuff. But to my knowledge, he just does covers online. Very good covers, very, very good vocalist. But he's got huge from Facebook promotion. Now, Justine, that's my girlfriend, she's booked tickets for us to go and see him. And I'm like, well, he's only... Well, I say he's only, but how do you know him? Well, I've just seen videos on YouTube. And now she's paid... She missed out on getting the tickets, and we've paid a little bit more than the actual ticket price to go and see it. And it's created a buzz. It's sold out. So that's the way forward now. It's all about, I think, bands that want to... It's not even just worldwide, but even on the local scene, you've got to be prepared to promote. You've got to be prepared to use Facebook. You've got to be prepared to... It's not just turn up and expecting to put a poster up and expecting people to turn up. Because pubs don't really promote you.
No.
You've got to be prepared to do that. You've got to put the graft in. But bringing it back to the coronavirus side of things, it's even more important now to, obviously, number one, we don't know if some venues are going to just cancel or whatever, but you've still got to maintain your fan base. Sam, in terms of the gigging side of things, what's your view on where you think it's going to go with coronavirus? Do you think there's going to be more cancellations? Do you think our gigs are going to get cancelled? I don't think they will be, but let's see.
I'd like to hope they won't be cancelled, because I really enjoy playing the gigs. We all enjoy playing the gigs, don't we? So I really,
Yeah,
hope, I really hope, I really hope they don't get cancelled. But we've got to think realistically. This is a worldwide pandemic now, isn't it? And it's going to spread more. So landlords probably aren't going to want to take the risk. And going back to what we said earlier on, I think they'd rather just stay shut for the day than having to pull pints at an empty pub and then have to pay a band, 300, 400, 500 quid at the end of the night, They're just losing money. So I've got a feeling that we might get a couple of cancellations as the weeks go on.
I don't think the Swan are cancelled.
No, or they might say, judge it, You guys turn up and judge it. Maybe. We don't know. So, yeah, what about you, Chris? What do you...
I don't think the Swan in Wickford would cancel us. Just because I think, the people, the guys that go drinking there, it's like a family thing for them, isn't it? It's like their Saturday night ritual almost. I think, if they were to be quarantined, that they will be quarantined inside the pub.
We've been here since Thursday.
Which is their usual. So I think, maybe some of them might be. I noticed on Facebook that the cricketers have put something up about the cricketers in Westcliff, saying that they've cancelled a few bands over the next sort of month. Now, I think that is just out of pure fear that no one's going out drinking.
Yeah.
But when I was driving here over today, I drove through Rayleigh and it's absolutely buzzing. Everyone's out.
That's the thing. But you've got to think, though, there's 67 million people in the UK and there's only been a handful of that affected. Is the UK population going to, just go down to their knees and, beg for mercy from it? I don't think they will. I think they're just going to carry on, to be honest with you, until someone...
fight on the beaches.
Fight on the land.
grounds.
Exactly. It's the old Churchill saying. That's the thing. But the British won't surrender. But
we keep on going.
That's exactly
We'll wash our hands.
Keep washing your hands.
That's the problem, though. I'm washing my hands all the time.
Skin left, look.
That's the thing. My hands are red raw because I'm in customers' houses for my work a lot of the time. Roll. No, I do not. No, but I had a job a couple of weeks back, and this is when the coronavirus was really starting to hit the news. And my boss said to me, I got a job, and I knew that this customer had just come back from Dubai. Now, Dubai's not got a massive spread over there, but still, Iran, right next door to it, is up there with the amount of cases over there. So I pulled up in my van, got out, and she was putting her bins out. And the first thing I said was, "How was your holiday?" First thing I said, and she went, "Oh, it was really good." I said, "When did you get back?" That was my critical question. When did you get back? And she said, 2 weeks ago. I was like, right, you're fine then, aren't you? And I said, so how's the coronavirus over there? Oh, no, nothing over there. And I was like, thank God for that. So I went in the house, done the job. But every job that I've been going to, it's just that little bit of fear. I've been turning up people's houses and you think, it's just a bit scary. But
people have got to be vigilant.
Exactly. But if your friend had invited you to a gig, so say for instance we went to go and watch Peppermint Apes at a busy venue, would you go still?
Yeah.
You'd still go?
Yeah. I think I would. Yeah. I mean, it depends on obviously what happens in the next couple of weeks, but at this moment in time, I think I would.
I think I still as me being, the hypochondriac, I still would. It's just, I think one you mentioned a minute ago, it's just vigilant, try not to shake hands with people, use a bit of loo roll top of the toilet door, because some dirty person's not washed their hands, things like that. So it's just being a bit more vigilant, isn't it?
Touch elbows to shaking hands.
That's exactly what you do, and hold your sneezing if you can. Sneeze across the bar.
If you're there the whole evening, like.
Smile.
Oh dear. But the good thing is, I mean, obviously we say to everybody, subscribe to the channel because we put videos out and we'll keep people up to date. But we're also, we put a lot of content out on Facebook, don't we? Yeah. Facebook.com/the Peppermint Apes. We've also got Instagram. You search Peppermint Apes Band. We're on there. So if there's any cancellations or any changes to our gigs, obviously we will announce it on there. But that aside, though, you guys, all jokes aside, I mean, on a serious note, have you stacked up your food? Like, I went shopping today. Have you guys done your shopping? Do you feel kind of pressured now to do it? Is it still a bit of a media hype to you, or do you think you're going to go out and?
Well, thankfully, we kind of not stock up, but when Steph does the shopping, she kind of just gets one extra bit anyway, like toiletries, just in case anything. It's just we're not going out and panic bought at all. But
do you mean one extra trolley?
One extra, yeah. We just pulls it through the front door. I've got this, but because we've got Oscar, we want to make sure he is okay. So it's things like nappies, wet wipes, all them kind of things. As long as he's okay, then I'm fine. So Steph's been getting like meals, pasta bakes, things like Dolmio ones. Just it's something you can just keep in the cupboard, things like that. Obviously, I don't think we've got to worry about perishables like your meats, your milks, because they're always going to be fresh. It's your long-lasting things, and like, all the pastas also. But Steph's she's not bulk buying, but she just bought like one extra thing. She went shopping twice this week just to get something for the weekend. You know, she's going to go again on Monday. We're not panic buying. We're just getting an extra little thing, if that makes sense. You know.
Yeah. One thing I'll say to everybody as well. I mean, I didn't bulk buy today, but I certainly ordered more than what I would usually order.
I think
or picked more, I should say.
I think mentally, everyone's doing it unknowingly. I think they're just doing it, aren't they?
It's two things. One, obviously, I would suggest people buy a bit more, because even if coronavirus does turn out to be a bit more of a media hype, you know, I think there's going to be a shortage of food in shops for a while. But my sort of advice to people would be
eat roadkill.
Just eat a squirrel. Just eat each other. No,
I hope it doesn't go that way.
No, but what I will say to people is, you know,
cannibalism.
That's what I mean. I hope it doesn't go there. There'll be some weirdo out there. I fancy eating an arm.
Coronavirus is my time.
So that's really why Lewis isn't here tonight.
Yeah, because you're eating.
He's currently in the frying pan. But no, I generally think people should, if you're going to go shopping, don't just go to the supermarkets and stuff. Go to like little shops, like the
corner shops.
Shops.
Premiers.
I'm sure they've got some toilet roll.
Things like that. Yeah. I was actually when we went to, because old Mr. Bissell came to our Colchester gig, didn't he? Now he works in Lidl, doesn't he, as a customer assistant? And I said to him, "So how's it affecting you?" He went, "Yeah, no toilet roll, standard stuff, no hand sanitizer, things like that." And he just said it's just ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
It's gone over the top. And the thing is, looking back on it, and you know, I really do hope everyone's safe, and because it is a serious virus at the same time, and I do hope that everything does in the next sort of couple of weeks just die down. You know, we can get back to normal.
What's justifying it for myself though, mate, is you see the stats. There are more people each year who die of cancer, more people who die of loads of other illnesses and flu, just seasonal flu as well. People of thousands, hundreds of thousands die of flu, you know, every year. So
it's those ones with weaker immunities as it stands anyway.
There seems to be worse things out there. I just hope they kind of do enough research, which they will be, in terms of longevity, because it could just be a small little virus, or it could be people feel they get cured, but down the line their immune system's not, you know, is weakened, which then you could, like I say, die by a basic flu. But all that seriousness aside, providing everything goes to plan, I wish everyone all the best of health. Of course I do. Like you say, in a couple of years' time, and we look back on this, 2020, is that going to be the year of the toilet roll? Is that going to be...
We should write a song about coronavirus.
Yeah, well, there is one. The bloke is Mike Sharona, wasn't it? He done his own version for My Corona.
Really?
It's on the YouTube. But yeah, I think we'll look back on it. If I'm so pessimistic, honestly. I'm actually winding my wife up so much because I'm just like, oh, it's the extinction, you know, it's the end of the world as we know. I'm sending REM songs to my family.
It does feel like we're at, like, you know, it does feel like an apocalypse at the moment. It feels like we're in a film, doesn't it?
But it's like the world's collapsed on itself, because if you think about it, obviously we're running out.
Go to a bar.
But if you think about it, we've run out of like toilet roll, and trees make toilet roll, you know, when it's all processed. Therefore, you got to cut down more trees. Now, I'm not trying to sound like Greenpeace or anything, but it's true. It's a knock-on effect, and it's going to start showing an effect soon. And then also business-wise, you know, the economy is going to start going down the toilet. It's just a knock-on effect, isn't it? Things like that.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely. But fingers crossed.
Yeah. Do you guys currently don't know anyone who's suffering from it?
Luckily, me, no.
Auntie, she come back from Italy about 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Have you seen her since?
No, I haven't. I'm seeing her on the 25th of April, but she hasn't got it. But she come back from Italy and got a really bad cough, fever, and was laid up, I think, in bed. She went to the hospital, not hospital, sorry. She had, I think, because you're not supposed to go to the hospital, are you?
No.
I think she called up and said, look, these are my symptoms. Someone actually came around and assessed her, I think. And she didn't have it, but they said, you know, you might manifest into it or something like that. So, self-quarantine for 2 weeks. I think she's just coming out of that now, but she's still not very well.
Okay.
Fingers crossed, mate.
I've got a couple of friends who live in Italy, actually, and they're quarantined.
Really?
She can't leave her house. No.
Wow. So, and they're finding people as well, aren't they, walking the street?
It's scary, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing. It's like, if it... I can't imagine. I mean, especially English people, we're told to do one thing, we're just not going to do it.
Yeah.
And if they turn around and said to us, "Oh, everyone has to on lockdown," everyone would be like, "No,
it is,
you're all right,
mate. The Italian police would just shoot you because they've got guns, whereas British police, they have to pass through Parliament, go through the government, and then they've got to put it through a statute. Things like law.
Bureaucracy.
And by the time that's gone through, by the time that's gone through, this will be over.
Yeah.
And so it'll all blow over.
Not worth it. But on a different note, if let's just say everyone's safe, first of all, we hope, and if we are on lockdown, but let's just say gigs are cancelled. So on the music scene, the Peppermint Apes gigs, we don't think they will be, but if they are, what's next for the Apes this year? What would be our plan?
Well,
so we'll do more podcasts.
I think you like to push YouTube quite a lot, don't you? And I think we all do as well. So I think we do have to. It'd be two things. We'd have to do some YouTube covers, but I do think we should also do some YouTube live gigs.
Yeah.
So
on the dates that gig was.
Oh yeah, or if that, yeah. I mean, we'll have to go and rent out a studio, set up for a gig performance.
If we're allowed to go in that studio.
I'm only saying because if we was going to have a gig that night, then we're all free that night.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So it might be worth us getting a studio if we go to control rooms or something, or even if we went over to Card Trick, got their gig rehearsal room for a couple of hours,
Did a gig.
And just do a gig there, and stream it live. We've got the resource, we've got the equipment to do it, so let's utilise it really.
Exactly. It doesn't stop the band. We're going to keep getting stronger as possible. We just hope we can do it on stage.
Yeah.
But no, it's been an interesting podcast.
But it's been a bit more serious one, but I think it's one that we had to talk about.
Yeah, we couldn't avoid it, could we?
No,
we were just going to talk about originally the local music scene.
Yeah.
We still have, but the coronavirus,
we put
we
reality
couldn't ignore it.
Put reality in with it. All right, everyone, thank you very much for listening or watching this podcast. We will be producing more material in the coming months as well. Please make sure you like and subscribe us on Facebook and YouTube. And thank you very much for joining us.